Hey, good morning to those of you out there on the West Coast. Good afternoon to those of you here on the East Coast with me. I'm excited to get started today to talk about matchmaking. It's a nice day outside. That always puts me in a really good mood. So I'm feeling energetic. I want to thank those of you engaging in chat. I really appreciate you doing that. That's what makes this community grow, right? And be valuable to each of you and to other people as they come in. So thank you for engaging in chat. We are going to be talking about matchmaking today, and as much as the title is "Never Attended Again," we're always trying to get in somewhere. And so, before we get too far into the meat of today's training, do me a favor, take a second and in the chat, just tell me, is there a particular place you're trying to get into? Right? And don't tell me Department of Defense, because that means you're not trying to get into anywhere. Are you trying to get into this office? And I might use, I think I see Jay Madigan on here, who's always, he doesn't work with me. He's in the community, but he is such an engaged community member that sometimes people thank him for the training, which I love. At the end of the training, they're like, thanks, guys, and Jay. But it's because Jay's so active. So I'll pull him up and make sure you check out Jay from Water Graham. But anyways, Jay might sit there and say that I'm trying to get into Fort Liberty to meet people in the public utilities, I think it is, department, right? So narrow down the answer to my question to that like an office. What office are you trying to get into? And for, where? So if you put that in, the reason I'm saying this is because I like looking at those answers and come back and go, well, how do I help you go forward? So right there, Matthew, you said U.S. Army. Tighten it down, like the MAPS contract vehicle. Is there a particular office? Because one of the things I want to do is come back and do training on different days where I could say, hey, last time I did training, people had said they were trying to get into these offices. Here's exactly what I did to get into those offices. And I'll try to pick some of you who put them in here, especially early on, some of you who picked them on, and see if I can't help make an introduction for you, because I'd like my training to always be related to real world needs, real world exercises. I don't conceptually say, well, you could go here or here. I want to say, somebody said it in our chat, they want to go here, like Jay said this, and these are the 3 or 5 steps I followed to be able to make an introduction to Jay or help Jay get in there. Okay, so just putting that in there as a quick little tip. Let's dive into the training. I want to start off today's training with a tip that's related to the training about procrastination. One of my favorite quotes out there is constructive procrastination. So you want to avoid constructive procrastination. And I think we all know what procrastination is, right? Delaying doing what needs to be done. Sometimes we do that by sitting on our couch and just watching TV. We're just procrastinating getting the kitchen clean, or we're just procrastinating picking up the phone and calling a customer or potential customer. Constructive procrastination is when you do something that appears to be useful, but really you're just doing it to not do the most important thing. So an example is going to matchmaking events that the government hosts. That's constructive procrastination if you're using that instead of picking up the phone and calling. And we're going to dive into that today. But it's really important to understand when you're not doing the most important thing. Sometimes we describe it as, what's the one thing you could do today that would make everything else easier or unnecessary? That one thing is the most important thing. So if you're doing other things, even if it seems like those are kind of important, those are lower on your priority list for a reason. And by doing a lower item on your priority list, you're doing constructive procrastination instead of doing that hard thing. And just because I'm having fun with analogies, I don't know who said this, and I'm sorry I forget it. Today I'm forgetting it. But somebody said, it might have been Mark Twain or something like that, right? Way back when. But if you have to eat a frog, right? A really unpleasant experience. If you have to eat a frog, eat it the first thing in the morning. If you have to eat 2 frogs, eat the bigger one first. And when you think about the work you have to do, that frog is the most important thing and task on your day. And sometimes we also think it is the least desirable, right? There's all these other things I'd rather do, like go to a matchmaking event and network. I'm going to walk around and talk to people. We're often encouraged, small businesses are often encouraged to go out and attend these agency matchmaking sessions. And personally, I believe they're a waste of time. I in particular think they're a waste of time for people who have just got into government contracting, because it keeps us busy for 6 or 12 months, but in the wrong direction, right? In the beginning, when you're trying to make money, the only way you're going to make money is building relationships with people who are already making money. We call that subcontracting, right? And so you want to be doing that kind of activity. For other people, I've seen this even in billion-dollar firms where people who are in charge of a particular agency they're supposed to grow, like DHS, they'll go to a conference and they'll talk about how they're walking around, but literally will not follow up after the conference. And so they're using the conference as this way of kind of demonstrating they're doing something productive, but it's more just activity. So if you think about the outcome that you would expect if you went to a matchmaking session or conference, et cetera, that outcome is you want to meet people, develop relationships, learning about opportunities so that you can win contracts, right? And so that expected outcome, I'm submitting to you in today's training that there are far better ways for you to be able to achieve the outcome that you're looking for. So that's why I say never attend matchmaking events. And really, if I just be fair to the matchmaking event, what I mean is don't use the matchmaking event as an excuse for not doing what needs to be done first. But instead of going to an event, I'm going to tell you what you could do. So today's training, I want to break it down into 3 sections. The first thing I want to talk about is just really level set around the top reasons I think matchmaking sessions are a waste of time for most of us. The next thing is when you look at a matchmaking event, you have a certain expectation of what you're going to get out of that event, right? And so I want you to, the second thing I want to cover down is think about what those goals would be for going to an event, and then just set your goals for yourself around, I want to meet a buyer. Well, who am I trying to meet, et cetera. I'll dive into that on helping you set the goals. And then the last thing I want to dive into is helping you understand what you could do instead of going to a matchmaking event. And really, I like to say you can just host your own matchmaking event. And I'll walk you through the steps that I would follow if I was helping you set up a bunch of meetings to get you in the door kind of thing. Okay, if you don't know who I am, my name is Neil McDonald. I am the president of the GovCon Chamber of Commerce. I'm the co-founder of GovCon in a Box, and I want to welcome you to my federal sales training, where I provide tips for success in the federal market. I spent 20 years in the federal market as a small business owner, and since 2018, I've been teaching people like you that government contracting is not a secret. It's just a process. When we follow a process A to Z, we have repeatable, predictable results. That's what I want for you. That's why I do this training over and over again. If you haven't done this already, put your company name and your core competency into the chat. Say hello to the people in the chat. This is not just training. This is a chance for you to network with other people beyond me, right? Other people who are in the industry, or other, sometimes federal buyers are in here. So just look in the chat, engage with people in the chat, and most importantly, introduce yourself in the chat. If you're on YouTube or anywhere else, come on over to LinkedIn. This is where you can network with people. YouTube, Facebook, that's where you can consume content. But over here, you can participate in the training as an active person in the chat and engage. If you haven't subscribed to my newsletter already, go ahead and do that. It's the Government Contracting Success Newsletter here on LinkedIn. A lot of valuable content that you can find helpful to you. I just posted a newsletter article yesterday that piggybacked on training I've done recently about how do you have success at an event. Ironically, since today I'm telling you, don't go to an event, but there's different angles that I constantly am covering in the training, but make sure you subscribe to the newsletter. And the last thing I want to say on this slide is just, we do training every single business day, unless I go sailing or get sick, right? And tomorrow's training is maximizing your visibility score, your federal visibility score. In that training, I will talk about the 100 Club. I'll talk about what does it take to get to the 100 Club. It is not a thing that I have defined. It's a thing that government has available, and I'm just opening your eyes to it. I'm shining light on what it takes to get into the 100 Club, or more importantly, what it takes to be visible to federal buyers. You can find it on govconinabox.com. You can actually just go there and learn. I've got a lot of little videos that guide you right through it, so you don't need to talk to me. But today, I wanted to highlight the 6 people who have recently brought their club into the 100 Club. No, brought their companies into the 100 Club. Eventually, I'll get used to saying that, right? But 3 people were from yesterday and 3 people for today. I just forgot the names yesterday. So I just wanted to welcome Daniel's company and Sam and Camille. These guys yesterday, 28 through 30, they brought their companies into the 100 Club yesterday, or since the day before. And since yesterday's training, we've got, actually H2 IT Solutions with Patrick. That was yesterday as well. I just want to make sure I'm shouting out their names because I really proud of you, and I could see the progress it took from you to go from wherever you were at to get to 100. Some people are starting at like 24, so they put a lot of work into getting into the 100 club, but I guided them along the way with video guidance. But today we just had 2 companies join in. Literally, Navi at the bottom just did it like 10 minutes ago. And if they didn't shoot me a message, I would have missed it. But Chaka and Navi, and I apologize if I'm not pronouncing it right, come in, talk to me, give me phonetic spellings, teach me how to say people's names. But your 2 companies, CKH Technology Services and WMC NAM Inc. And that one too, I need to learn a little bit more about it. So hopefully you're here and you're putting it into the chat. But I want to welcome you into the 100 Club. You guys are doing great, just being more visible to the federal buyers. Okay, let's talk about the top reasons, my top reasons. I think matchmaking sessions are a waste of time, right? And I say this softly, right? I'm really trying to encourage you to do a different behavior, not to sit there and say that what the government does is bad, blah, blah, blah. What I'm saying is it's more like constructive procrastination than bad. And I want to give you an alternative to it. But let's think about some of these reasons we might want to attend it first, because then I can sit there and go back and each one of these, I'm just going to say why it's not a good reason. So we might think we want to attend a meeting, a matchmaking session with the government, because we're going to meet agency personnel, people who work for the government. If you have ever gone to a government matchmaking session, then you know that that's not the case. Let me rephrase it. You might meet government personnel, but they're not going to be helpful to you. How can they? It's like literally you bought a lottery ticket of matchmaking, you're scratching it off and hoping you got a winner. But that person on the other side can't possibly help a product company, a construction company, an IT company, an HR company, et cetera, because they don't know everything their agency does. And if they're a small business professional, they know it superficially. More importantly, you could have just picked up the phone and called them, right? And so it's a hit or miss on who's on the other side of the table. And that's a challenge there. The other thing is those agency personnel tend to meet 50 or 100 people in a matchmaking session. The government likes to brag about like how many people we met with. Well, how many people do you remember, government, right? That's a really important thing. I actually have a whole bunch of training on how to have success at a matchmaking event. If you do go to it, I tell you how to succeed at it. Today's training is about don't go to it, but if you do go to it, I want you to succeed. The second reason we might attend is because we want to meet large business primes. You're never going to meet at a matchmaking event unless like somehow you win the lottery and there's life on many planets out there. You're not going to meet anybody at a large business prime table in matchmaking that is really going to be helpful to you. They'll be nice. They'll guide you. They'll give you some tips, but they're not going to be the program manager on some major task order with the Department of Homeland Security or Army. They're not going to be a business developer or capture person sitting at those tables. These are small business liaisons, usually nice enough people. But, when you think about who you're trying to meet at a large prime, you want to meet the people who actually have the work, not the person who's the gatekeeper to 100,000 small businesses. The third one I have here is you're hoping to meet other small businesses. And this is I think one of the best things that could happen at a matchmaking event is there will be other small businesses. The problem is it's like a grab bag. You're closing your eyes, and I don't know why you're closing your eyes to do this, but you're reaching into a bag with your eyes closed. And you're pulling out whatever you get. And so these small businesses that you're meeting, they're completely random. If you're an IT cybersecurity company, as nice as that construction company is, how helpful are you going to be to each other, right? And I talk, to be fair, about how if you're both going after the Army, you should be able to figure out how to help each other. But that's not your ideal point of contact. Construction company probably wants to meet a construction company. And the IT cyber company wants to meet an IT cyber company. You could just pick up the phone and call those companies that you want to meet. The next one is when you think about why you want to attend, you might want to network. And I just put that one in there because people say they're going to network. But what does that really mean? The whole purpose of network, it's not to take selfies, right? As much as we take selfies, it's not to take selfies and it's not to party, right? We're in business, whether we have a job at a small business or we own the small business. We're going and investing our time away from our office or our families or our friends, right, to go to this event. So networking should have a purpose. It's not just a purpose in itself. And so the purpose of networking is to build relationships, start and build new relationships. Well, that goes back to who are you meeting? If you're just going there to network with random people, then you're missing it. You actually get more value in these trainings by networking with the 100+ people who register. We've got almost 100 people live today, right? And literally you can learn about people in the chat because hopefully everybody is saying, hey, this is what we do. This is where we're at. We're down in Texas or something. By seeing that, I might go, oh, I want to meet those people in chat. And so you can network already here, and not just my event. There's many events like this that are virtual where you can have coffee or you can have lunch, et cetera, and attend the event. And the last one is you might attend an event because you want to hear about how to work with an agency. The only thing the agency is going to tell you there is their canned briefing. If you can get a canned briefing, then you can get that online, right? You can just download it from the website. Many agencies have a very good website that says how to do business with us. Do this, do this, do this. Here's how you can figure out what we buy. Here's some of our points of contact. And so you can get massive amount of information in there. We provide a lot of information out that talks about it. Literally this morning, I shared a post about how to understand the United States Space Force, right? It's the 6th military command that's out there. And it's a big deal if you're trying to get in there to understand them. But you don't have to go to an event to learn about it. You can learn about it somewhere else. And these are why I think these are kind of not helpful, because you do it in other ways. This is the part where I say constructive procrastination. If you went there just because you're like, I just want to get out. I want to get out there. I want to commingle around government, contracting related people, government and industry. That's totally great. I think that's great. Sometimes I go there for the energy as well. But if it's one of these 5 bullets, then there's other ways to do it, which we'll talk about. Another reason that I think matchmaking sessions are a waste of time is just the cost, right? And I was pausing for a second because I lived in the DC area. I could literally go anywhere, drive to almost any major agency, right? And you can't if you're in Colorado or in New Mexico or Florida or something. You can't do that here. So if you do come up here, that's a massive investment. But even for me, when I was here, if you know the DC area, it's an hour-and-a-half commute minimum. If you want to make sure you get in, past security, all that kind of stuff, a minimum of an hour-and-a-half on either end, right? So I'm committing 3 hours before I even go to an event. And then there's a couple more hours. This stuff adds up. And all for what? For meeting somebody? There's other ways you could do this out there, perhaps. I already mentioned this, but there's no decision makers usually at a matchmaking session. When I say usually, I mean 99.999% of the time. There are no decision makers there, right? The decision makers, though, you can determine who they are, pick up the phone and call them. And we'll talk about that in a minute. But we don't want to go to a matchmaking session having higher expectations than that event is there prepared to deliver. And then the last thing is it's just crowded with competitors. And I already touched on this. If you're sitting across the table with a federal buyer or federal personnel, they're going to hear from 50 or 100 of us, and we're just going to crowd their mind. Do you want to be first? Do you want to be last? Do you want to have the smallest thing? And it's really tough in there. So, when you get a lot of competitors, and I don't mean competitive mates yet, but just competitors, it just gets really overwhelming. So what should you do instead? What I suggest you should do is determine what was my reason for wanting to go to a matchmaking event and then not go to it. Execute on it virtually, right? Figure out how to do this virtually. And so I have here this next slide. I want to talk about how to create your own goals around meeting buyers, because that's generally the reason we go to an event, right? And you can change buyers. You'll see this in a second, buyers to industry partners, but you want to understand, what do you really want from a matchmaking event? If you're going out there, I put a couple of things in here that are really important to me. I think a lot of us go to these events because we want to meet people. That is probably one of the most common reasons we go to an event. And so the first thing is to determine what your goal is, because you no longer have to have a specific date and knock out every goal. You can say, hey, next week or 3 weeks from now, I want to have a bunch of meetings with agency personnel, right? Going to a matchmaking session, by the way, is not a meeting. Sitting across the table with somebody is not a meeting. If you've ever been to these things, unless you get somebody who's phenomenal, they just throw canned stuff at you. You kind of throw canned stuff at them, and we hope we follow up later. And sometimes you're successful talking to them. But when you sit there and say, I want to meet agency personnel, you start tightening up. This is why I asked you in the beginning, who do you really want to get into? And how can I grab a couple of your suggestions in the chat and go show you exactly how I do it? But if it's agency personnel, large businesses, small businesses in that particular agency, then we've got it. We go, okay, we want to go meet these people out there. The second thing you want to kind of tie to those goals, or are you trying to learn about the agency? So business development is understanding agency, developing relationships, and identifying opportunities. Or are you trying to chase down one particular opportunity, which is capture, right? If you got one particular opportunity and you're trying to chase it down, and I don't mean for $1 or $2 million opportunity. I'm talking about something a little bigger. You're going after a $5+ million opportunity. Then you want to be able to engage multiple people who are at that agency, whether they're industry or government, so that you can learn more about the opportunity, enabling you to write a better proposal. But when you think about your goals for going to a matchmaking event, and now where you think about it from a virtual standpoint, who do you want to meet? Understand that, because you're going to build that list in a second. And then what do you want to learn? I teach this all the time when I talk about how to have relationships, how to have meetings. Always make sure you have that objective. And that's what this slide is talking about. What is your objective for what you're going to do, this matchmaking event? And so let's talk about how to host a virtual matchmaking event. So instead of going to a government vendor outreach session, have your own, right? You can have it across multiple days. I like the idea of having it as one day, and I've done many trainings on this, but I laid out a step-by-step guide of how to really build it so you can have you and your team having 8 or 16 meetings in one single day. And we can talk more about that. But let me walk you through the steps that I would do if I was going to create a virtual matchmaking event. I don't need to meet everybody. It would be awesome if I met 8 specific people who could be truly helpful to my company, getting into an agency and learning more about an opportunity, if that's the path I wanted to go, right? So the first thing I might do is just look out 3 weeks and say 3 weeks is more than enough. If I start today, I can start scheduling. Usually people's schedules are fairly free 3 weeks out, right? And some will, some won't be available. That's okay. But I'll pick a day 3 weeks out, because that's the day I want to fill up with 30-minute slots. You know how sometimes you get a matchmaking event, it's 10 minutes or 15 minutes. What I want are 30 minutes, or what I want is to have a solid 15-minute intro, but I want 30-minute slots to give me this chance to be able to write notes. So I'll block 4 hours out. And I'm saying 4 hours because I feel like sometimes anything more than 4 hours is tough on people. But for me, if I was doing it, I would do it 8 hours. Like I have a couple of people in my company saying, hey, let's do this together. If I need to take a break, I'll take a break. You can take the next meeting, but let's fill in 8 hours. For today, I'm just saying block out 4 hours, one day, 3 weeks from now. So let's say Wednesday, 3 weeks from now, we block out 10 a.m. to 2 p.m., right? That's totally fine. And in there, we're dividing out into 30-minute slots. And so basically, we're going to have a meeting at the top of the hour and the bottom of the hour. And we'll talk about that in a second. Once you've blocked the time and you know when you're doing it and you and your colleagues are all free, now create a target list of people. So you're only going to have time for 8 meetings. And so what you want to do is to build a target list of like 50 people you want to meet. And I have a lot of training, if you want to go watch it, on how do I build a target list at this particular agency to be able to get in. I'll give you a quick example. In the Navy, there's something called PEO Digital. And I think they got like 200 to 400 people or something like that, right? Well, PEO Digital is exactly where I would love to get in and develop a really good relationship with the entire organization, one person at a time. And so I might look into PEO Digital and build up a list of 50 people and say, these people, any one of them would be a great meeting. So now my goal is to reach out to them. I'm going to pick up the phone. I might send them an email. I might do both. I might do both over and over again. I might reach out on LinkedIn. I might see if they're out there and engage them a little bit and reach out. And what I want to do here in bullet 4 is I want to invite people to just a quick introduction meeting. Do you mind? We're having a matchmaking event on, I would literally call it that, by the way. We're having a matchmaking event on August 19th, whatever day that is, right? We're having a matchmaking event, and we'd love to have you come and join us for a quick intro call to our company. Could we schedule it, right? And I can refine how I'm saying it. I'm kind of winging it at the moment, but it's just a really basic thing. You just want to find out if they're going to say yes or no. And I don't care if they say no. That's the same as a yes to me. In sales, you got to embrace both yes and no's to be comfortable, right? And so I'm going to invite this target list with the goal of getting 8 people to commit 3 weeks out for that one day. And I'm scheduling those, like I said, 15-minute meetings at the top and the bottom of the hour. Makes it really easy to give them options in there. And it's just 15 minutes of your time. From your perspective, it's really cool because you'll be able to write notes after a meeting and have action items, decide how we're going to follow it up, and then refresh your memory on the next person. So that 15-minute block will allow you to close out one meeting and prepare for the next meeting really fast. And I don't mean full prepare. You're going to do full preparation earlier, but just a refresher of going, oh, I'm moving from John to Sally. Now I know what we're going to talk about. And so the next thing is when you've got those meetings scheduled, right, then you can use a call plan in your meeting. So you're going to prepare a deck to briefly introduce who you are. If you're able to keep it pretty focused, then anything you have in that deck. And when I say a deck, I mean like 5-6 slides at most that you're talking to, because it's 15 minutes. You want to give them a briefing on the deck in 3 to 4 minutes or so. You don't want to do a lot because you want to use a call plan. I don't know if you've seen me do training on using a call plan, but in sales, we use a call plan. So we write down questions. In this case, because it's a matchmaking event that we're doing, we're going to have a lot of similar questions. In particular, if we drive after PEO digital, right? So we can ask the same type of questions to a lot of people. You only need to write, let's say 15 questions, 10 or 15 questions, and then you just decide which question is best to ask somebody. In the call plan, you'll set an objective, but really your objective out of each meeting is to get a second meeting. That really is the objective. If you're having a quick 15-minute meeting, its purpose is to see if we want to talk again. And so you want to be aiming for that as well. Hey, do you mind if we schedule a much bigger conversation? I didn't want to take a lot of your time today, but maybe a couple of weeks out, we can come back, have a 30-minute meeting, and I'd like to dig further into what PEO Digital is doing. And the last thing is just make sure you invite your colleagues to come to that matchmaking. So when you go to matchmaking normally at a government event, it's usually you, maybe one other person. Even virtually, sometimes I see the government limit the number of participants, which is mind-blowing to me. I'm like, you could have 1,000 people there and it wouldn't matter. But with these meetings that you're doing yourself, I would bring in several colleagues and say, hey, I'm having this meeting. I'm doing the talking, but I'd love for you to sit around so we're all kind of watching type thing. And we're all learning together what PEO Digital is saying about what they're doing. Okay, hopefully that made sense. If it did, put relationships rock in the chat. Well, I give you a couple of things to remember. The first thing is just remember that these vendor outreach sessions agencies host, they're hitting the government's goals. The government is mandated to do outreach, right? And so they keep putting strategic plans saying, we're going to have these events, but they don't really look at these events and go, how did it help you, the business owner, or you, the business developer? How did it help you achieve your goals? They don't sit there and say, hey, what are your goals? They think the matchmaking is the goal. It's like, that's not the goal. We want to get in the door. The matchmaking event was fine, but we didn't get in the door. We got into the table. And so we want more, but those events are hitting their goals. You want to determine your own goals and then schedule it virtually your own. Create your own matchmaking session. So you go where you want, you tighten it up instead of all of HUD, you're driving down into one HUD set of offices or something, that kind of thing. Make sure you set those goals and schedule matchmaking your way. Hopefully you found this valuable today for training. If you did, and if you like this training, make sure you register for tomorrow's training and subscribe to our newsletter. Our newsletter is where we put out the word about more training coming down the line. Plus we provide a ton of good tips. If your company's doing over $2 million and you're looking for me and my team to help you go to the next level, then check out our BD Accelerator workshop. You can just put workshop into the chat, or you can message me on LinkedIn. By the way, if you're not on LinkedIn, come on over to LinkedIn and say, I saw your training, love to connect. Happy to connect with you so that you can start getting exposure to the broader network that I have. For all of us, just as we head into the day, remember that government contracting, it is not a secret. It's just a process. Part of the process is coming back tomorrow. I will see you tomorrow.